Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just finished watching The Boys Season 2, Episode 7, the penultimate episode of the season known as Butcher, Baker, and the Candlestick Maker. And it's kind of funny considering this is the exact same title of Volume 10 of The Boys, the Garth Ennis comic. Much like that volume, we delve more into Billy the Butcher's past, particularly with his father, albeit not with any flashbacks, but we also get a ton of other stuff going on in this episode. Starlight ends up getting captured by Vaught, as well as her mother, after her mother makes a huge freaking mistake to contact Ashley, which causes Black Noir to knock Starlight out and send her over to the Vaught building, where the Homelander and Stormfront basically just out Starlight as a traitor. Not only does this mean she is so out of the Seven, but it also means for the Church of the Collective that the Deep and A-Train are possibly going to go back to the Seven. Which also shows us that the Deep didn't really seem to care much about Eagle the Archer to begin with, because he's out of the church because of because apparently he's gay and because he realized the church is full of it anyways. So the Deep decides to throw away his supposed friend Eagle like a hot potato just because he has an opportunity to join the Seven again. But I figured that much from the Deep. He's basically a scumbag from the beginning to the end. But with Starlight being captured, Huey and Lamplighter, instead of staying behind and watching porn parodies of the Seven, which I'll admit that was a really funny joke, and it even has a reference to one of the members of the Seven who wasn't in the actual team in this season. It's basically a Martian Manhunter knockoff who was traded in for Translucent in this series. I thought that was a funny reference. But anyways, Lamplighter and Huey, in that regard, end up going to the Vaught Tower to save Starlight. But in the process, Lamplighter finds out that his statue was ultimately moved in favor of Starlight's, as we saw in the first episode of the season, and he burns himself alive, which just makes things harder for Huey. Well, to be fair, it does allow Starlight to break out of her own confinement herself, but it also means that Huey has to cut off Lamplighter's own hand off of his charred body when the Lamplighter's already dead. So yeah, when it comes down to it, I do think the series doesn't go quite as tasteless as the original The Boys comic could get, but it is still pretty damn brutal and violent when it needs to be. I didn't think that Lamplighter was going to die this season, but for what it's worth, I do think it was a pretty cool scene. As was when Black Noir and Starlight end up fighting each other, where we actually see the bottom half of Black Noir's face, which kind of confirms my theory that turns out looks like they're not going to go for the twist in the comics involving Black Noir. Granted, Black Noir doesn't speak still, but judging from the bottom of his face, he's not the same Black Noir we know from the comics. And he has a tree nut allergy, which explains the why he threw away that almond joy in the first episode. No, the fourth one in this season. To my knowledge, Black Noir never had that kind of allergy in the comics, but I thought it was kind of a funny joke, and it does sort of explain a scene that seemed like a throwaway gag in the fourth episode. That's what I love. Almost everything that you see comes together at some point. Plus, I like the fact that, Queen Maeve rescued Starlight, and the fact that she's embracing more of who she was in the comics, as in going through debauchery and doing drugs and not appealing to Vaught's narrative that she and Elena are this, go-to lesbian couple. I love that when Maeve was finally doing that, because, you know what? Screw Vaught. You can do what you want, Maeve, and you're awesome doing that. Same goes for Billy the Butcher when he encounters his father again and happens to call the old man out for all the horrible things he did. And if you've read the Butcher, Baker, and the Candlestick Maker volume of the comics, you know that Billy is 100% justified in everything that he's doing. Granted, Billy is Billy Butcher about it, but that's what I like. As brutal as he can get, almost all of his actions and hatred are basically 100% justified. That's especially the case when he also happens to threaten Dr. Vogelbaum later in the episode, too. Now, with all of that going on, it seems that with Lamplighter dead, it looks like Vogelbaum's going to be the one to force Vaught to, into this hearing, and they're going to bring Vaught down on a legal level. But Vogelbaum and the judge and a bunch of other people's heads spontaneously explode in the same way that the FBI agent did at the start of the season. And considering that Stormfront and Homelander aren't affected, I'm wondering, was it one of them who did it, or is it someone else? Who's responsible? I have no clue. And considering that they're also turning Ryan, Homelander's kid, over to their side, I'm wondering what their ultimate plan is. Especially since now the kid is suddenly on Homelander's side, and Becca isn't really up a creek without a paddle again. This is pretty much, I'm sure all of it's going to be explained in the finale, but for now, this is a penultimate episode that kept me on the edge of my seat, and I absolutely loved every second of it. So I'll see you next week for the finale. See you for now.